don't know why I was naive enough to think like, oh, if he saw me as this goofball idiot, as a good guy, he wouldn't see me as a goofball idiot as a bad guy. Because forgive me for thinking that a goofball idiot bad guy couldn't draw any money. Apparently they thought that it would, whatever. Can we not just write one good storyline? Can we not write one good promo? Does everything have to be fucking stupid? Does everything have to make me look like an idiot? Like, for fuck's sake, you're gonna make me walk away from all this fucking money. Because it's not like I didn't want that money.
You know, and we all have our 15 minutes of fame, and I'd like to take a couple of my 15 minutes to talk about the rights and the wrongs in the world of professional wrestling.
WWE Championship.
This match is for the ECW World Heavyweight Championship.
The World Heavyweight Championship.
The match and new NWA Heavyweight Champion.
We appreciate you guys coming out and taking your time to support women's wrestling in America.
This match is for the AWA World Heavyweight Wrestling Championship.
Hello one and hello all. This is another edition of Rights and Wrongs of Pro Wrestling, a podcast. And it is your host, Mr. Green. Welcome to the show. And what you heard there at the top of it was a little bit of audio extracted from, what was that, maybe 2021 StarCast? Somewhere in there. But John Moxley was basically doing the sit-down interview deal with Jim Ross and explaining his reasonings for leaving WWE at the time. And of course, we know that it came down to he was not particularly happy with the creative. Thus, the statement, can we not have one storyline where it doesn't make me look stupid or make me look like an idiot? And why would I pick that? to put at the beginning of this particular program. Well, I'm pretty sure you can figure that out right now, because there is somebody that I feel the same way. Now, I'm sure that this person would never say that. I'm sure she is never going to get on anybody's platform, personal or otherwise, and start carrying on about, can we get something that doesn't make me look like an idiot? I don't expect that from most people in the wild. Although I'm sure that there's some in the wild that feel that way. However, we will get to the act of stupidity in a couple of moments as we breeze through this fine episode. And what episode is this, by the way? Because we're going to go right off into the talking of the episode and its full review. What was up, what was down, what was right, what was wrong. And it shouldn't be, I guess, terribly deep or in depth. This was like a 2-match episode. So what are you going to do? Is we got to stretch this out as best you can, I suppose. So that being the case, let us get right off into the review, because that's the important part. And boy, do we have some things to say. This opening slate is going to be for WoW episode 427, the title, Battle for the Belts. The air date was April the 11th. The chronological number was 183. They are still cooking and moving along. Got to give the credit where it's due. I mean, the fact that they have managed to keep this ship afloat is quite impressive, despite the fact that, you know, that they've had a couple of changes and switches and whatnots across the seasons and the I guess the years that WoW has existed. I guess since I'm talking about it, you know, they seem to have just let some things just kind of drift away. You know, that it's not that WoW hasn't had efforts to do certain things. It's just that those things, when they come, I guess if it doesn't make an immediate impact or something along those lines, it just kind of vanishes. Didn't really go any further than that. Like that 24-hour-a-day WoW wrestling channel, that kind of just faded away. The card game that they had, I mean, it still technically exists, but they never bring it up. Merchandise was there, but they kind of feature merchandise that was there 3 or 4 years ago. It's not really a massive amount of creative work there. It's just whatever this logo you got, we're going to slap that on the shirt, and there you go. Amongst other things. And the biggest of them that has surprised me was the revelation that some of these things, points of distribution that they've had, seemingly no longer exist. Now, I don't know if WoW as a group, let me rephrase that, the people that work there, I'm not sure if they are aware of that. There have been a couple of occasions where I would look at something or get some notification, a press release, information from somebody that was on the, I guess you want to call it the inside, and I would be able to see, okay, well, they've got this thing happening and whatnot, and you kind of talk to some of the people that's in charge of distribution, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And every once in a while, you would get information that came more or less from the horse's mouth that had not been distributed to WoW personnel yet, or at least the WoW roster. Such as when they were on, I was about to say AMC, that's the wrong network. I didn't mean AMC, Access TV. But one of their talents there wasn't told that they were canceled off of Access TV when I reached out to that person. And I will leave them alone, but that person was pretty much in the mode of, well, you know, you'll have to talk to Access TV first and get a hold of me and blah, 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 blah. Until I was like, okay, well, I didn't know that y'all still dealt with them since Access had canceled. Wow. I didn't want to just be like, well, yeah, they canceled y'all. I kind of tried to word it within the response, so it just came as a casual thing. Then all of a sudden, they had all the time in the world. Go figure. But I say that to say the WoW hasn't removed the logo for like Tubi TV and Pluto off of their banner. But I see no signs of any of that on either platform anymore. Let's not forget that, you know, I brought this up maybe a year ago. I said Tubi has stopped uploading new episodes of WoW. Even when WoW was telling people go to Tubi TV and watch our stuff, they had just stopped uploading it. Now, true, they could have gone there and watched like a season of it. So they weren't up to date, but they also didn't give you the full archive of what they had just done, even since they had returned to television in syndication. I don't know if that is WoW's fault as a company on their own, but it does make it somewhat difficult for them, and I will fully acknowledge that has to be difficult for them as a promotion or as a show or any combination thereof to have that stuff there and then it's not available. Some people cannot get WoW on just standard television, so they were waiting for it to pop up on Tubi TV. And I promise you, I looked back and forth on that. I was like, I don't see any of this. It was kind of the same thing that happened with the CW thing. It wasn't announced that, well, okay, we're moving it off of this platform and going here. It just kind of faded out. If you had gone to the CW to check anything for WoW out in its beginning, yeah, you would have seen it, but then it just kind of slowly died off. Which is what I said was going to happen. I was like, once the WWE steps up into that, I don't know if WoW's going to stay. Sure enough, That's what started to happen. But then they found that other home. They found Pluto, and they had a channel there. And then they found Tubi. I shouldn't say found, but they started uploading their content to those platforms. And then they had the 24-hour day WoW channel for a little while there. And then it just kind of slowly faded away. Tubi wasn't even a slow fade. It was like an abrupt stop. It's just like came up against a brick wall. They had that last episode right in the middle of the season, and it was just boom. No more uploads, which for the life of me, I cannot understand why that would have happened. Beyond maybe whoever was uploading these things to Tubi just said, fuck it, y'all not paying me, I'm not going to do it anymore. I don't know. I can't imagine a scenario that somebody would have allowed that to happen or would have caused it to happen. I mean, and mid-season at that, I could see it if it was, okay, we got to the end of the season, but we're not going to continue on with it. That I can see. But it just like stopped mid-season. And now, even though it's like it's streaming on Tubi TV and it's streaming on Pluto, like I don't see any signs of that. Those things appear, and I will stress that because maybe they're retooling it. I don't know. I had not reached out to their distributing partners yet, and I have talked to them before. But I haven't reached out to them again to ask about this. So take what I'm saying with a grain of salt. I'm not going to sit here and be like, well, it's never going to pop back. I don't know. It might pop back up. But as of now, as of me recording this, as of this podcast, those things have been removed. And like I said, this is not a new thing for Tubi. It's new that it's gone. It's not new that they just didn't have any more episodes. They stopped that a while ago. So every once in a while, I do question, like, what it has to be working out in some regard, but is like outside of the central show, whatever little side project it has, it pops in for a little while, and they're excited about it for like a week or two, maybe a month, and I'm being generous to say that, and then it's just kind of like, I wanted to say it's like a fond memory, but I think that's giving it too much credit to say it is like a fond memory. It just seems to just fade away. Now, perhaps that's all there because they decided, well, we're just going to stick all our stuff on the wrestling channel, which we share with the NWA, which is kind of ironic, actually. I mean, considering that they're maybe the only two promotions that I can think of in current day that tape 2 to 3 to 4 months in advance of what they're doing, to the point that neither one of them can really change anything when somebody leaves or hurt or quits, or whatever, or somebody comes in or whatever. Like, they don't have the ability to do anything about it. Whatever they shot is what has to air. That's just the way it goes. Anyhow, we will keep our eyes open for that, but it is somewhat, I won't say disconcerting, but I mean, it's just disappointing. It's disappointing that they have gotten to where this is taking place again. Something else that they put out into the world, something else that they pushed and or promoted, and that thing just poof, out of there. So anyhow, I just had to have a little sidebar with that. So what about the episode in and of itself? I guess now, even though I said we was going to start probably 10 minutes ago, but I guess now would be the time. So I'm going to reissue the slate to say is WoW episode 427, season 4, episode 27. Battle for the Belts is the title. The air date, April the 11th. Chronological number 183. And it opened up on the crowd. And I'm also almost 100% sure. I'm going to say I'm about 90% sure that the crowd was coached into chanting and cheering. For the purposes of TV, I'm sure. This pitches to a recap of Monsters and Metals championship win. Of course, over the former champions and the only other team to have held those particular titles, Top Tier. And then we go to the next segment. That's Top Tier entering and getting ready to do their in-ring well, I shouldn't say they. It's only Campanelli. Even though the team came out there, she's the one that's talking. Dave McClain says they're being interrupted. Maybe they were. It doesn't feel like an interruption on WoW's television. It just doesn't. Feel like everybody does the same thing. I don't know why this would be considered some sort of interruption. The music, they walk past whoever it is in the back to cue up the music and turn on the graphics, and they come out. I don't know why that would be considered some sort of interruption. And more often than not, it's not like McClain or Zane are saying something vitally important, or they just came through the crowd and snatched the microphone out of his hand or something like that. Like, that's an interruption. Here, they're just walking out. And it doesn't feel like it's, who is this? Why are they coming? And it's hard for me to take that seriously from David McClain. The same rules that I've said about him apply here. He's the guy in charge. Why wouldn't he know? And I'm certain if he didn't want somebody interrupting him, he'd stop it. I can't say enough. He's already illustrated that he has the ability to do whatever he feels like doing within his universe. So for what reason am I led to believe now that he has no concept or clue who's walking out and why? So they come out. Campanelli cuts a promo on the loss. And she comes off like she's dumbfounded by it. Can't believe this happened type thing. I think first off, she does fine with her promos. She is very much in tune with who Coach Campanelli is and how Coach Campanelli should relate information. And probably better than most of them, because if there's one thing I can say about Campanelli is that throughout the time that she's been there, she's basically been the same person. There's been some evolution to some minor degree, whether that be in look or, the promos got a little bit more verbose, less reliance on having to do and say puns or whatever's going on. But she's been good with that. So there was no reason for anybody to believe that she wouldn't be good here now. She delivered the goods as far as being a heel who just lost a championship and needing a reason as to why. She basically says that 2 losses for this team is unacceptable. And that it's time for restructuring. Now, both Candy Crush, Gloria Glitter, who are on her left and right, are showing the faces of, wait, not me. I'm not the problem here, because it's been alluded to that there was a problem within the group and it needed to be restructured. And both of them are like, oh, no. Even though, in terms of the camera work, I would tend to believe that it lingered a little bit more on Glitter than it did, Crush. I cannot say that, well, it's obviously going to be glitter because, look, it's wild. You never know. You never know. It would be my first choice, especially given that she ran in and she gave the little, cold breaker and hit both of them simultaneously, knocking them both out to where she then took the fall. It would be easy for me to believe that Campanella would turn around and blame Gloria Glitter. But they also might decide to do a swerve for the sake of doing a swerve. It's all possible. The only other thing that this comes off as a less than stellar moment is because McLean talked through this like normal. I wanted him to just kind of, all right, look, tone it down and let her have her time on the mic. That's not to say that he can't say something at some point or respond or whatever, but he's talking through this thing, which makes it somewhat rough to digest. But her promo is still digestible, so we'll move on with that. The next segment was a recap of the Dojo Defenders drama, along with Miami Sweet Heat. This includes the Super Clean Vandalism segment and Blaze and Stripe becoming number one contenders. Next segment is Scoles. Backstage interview. She interviews Tara Strike and Ashley Blaze. Our, new tag team. And Blaze has the line of the interview. And I had to make sure that I highlighted this one. The line of the interview. How dumb do they think we are? And I was like, well, judging by the outcome of this, the answer is very. Judging by this entire angle, how dumb do we think you are? And I'm not saying that they are, but within the context of this story, they probably think that you're very stupid. Well, they had to have done it. It was pink paint. Who else uses that? Irrefutable evidence. And it's moments like that. I was like, I sometimes question, it's like, okay, who is this being produced for? Is this being produced for kids where, they would just take it with a grain of salt and like, oh, well, okay, yeah. Or is it being produced for adults that would look at this like, that didn't make any sense? Why would this pink paint instantaneously mean that it's the Fab Four or Miami Sweet? Like no one has the ability to go to the store and buy paint. Which, we basically, within their universe, they basically told you that anybody can run to the store and do this because you saw the result. And we'll get to that, but you saw the result. Anybody can buy this. So why in their universe are they being portrayed as stupid? Blaze and Strike accused Miami Sweet Heat over the word loser and some pink paint. It's rock solid proof. But I come back to where is this supposed to fall in the aspect of presenting this story? In the real world, this would be ridiculous. In terms of, well, we figured out who did it. It was the word losers is pink paint. That is ridiculous. In their kayfabe universe, it became ridiculous because how it ended. So I don't know where this was supposed to, or I should say, I don't know what this is supposed to make me feel about their alleged genius moment that they figured out who did this. Was I supposed to back them up? Was people like, yeah. But then you have the idea like, all right, well, maybe everybody didn't go for that. Everybody knew that it was going to be some sort of swerve. I just wish they had a better way to get to it. But maybe they did. Maybe it was the assumption of, and everybody's going to know that Kai and wasn't that Shore are going to do something. Maybe they was going off the premise of that. But again, doesn't really say a lot for the presentation of Strike and Blaze. This could have been done differently. That's all I'm saying. The next segment is the first match of our 2-match show. Taz Strike and Ashley Blaze versus Miami Sweet Heat of Lana Star. And Zayn says the Heat allegedly did damage to their locker room. Here's where I started getting questioning the same question I asked a moment ago. McClain says the evidence is there. And at some point within this, he doubles down on it. Well, who else could it be? They used pink paint. I'm like, boy, come on. How stupid can this get? Like, even as the trusted commentator figure, he didn't even present it with a shred of doubt. They use pink paint. It has to be. It's got to be them. It's ridiculous that would even be presented as such. But he did. It's hard to get it out of my mind when I was like, well, who is that produced for? Is it produced for your Saturday morning 8-year-old? And if that's the case, then yeah, okay, that's fine. Because they're not going to question it. They're not going to care. But given that I'm in a room that mostly this show airs at 11, 12, 1, 2. I don't know if it goes on at 8, 3 a.m. in the morning in some markets, but I know it goes off that part. But between the hours of 11 and 2 a.m., 11 p.m. and 2 a.m., that's where I most often see this airing in different markets. And if you're looking at that, then you're probably aiming for adults, which then turns around back to, why would he say something like this? Why would Strike and Blaze say something like this? They clearly are not going to lead anybody away from what we know to be true. I very much doubt that they steered someone away from the idea that it was Kai and Shore so that this amazing pop would take place, or that this shocking awe moment, like, oh my God, I can't believe, I sincerely doubt that anybody got to that point. Which makes me question, why did they, what was this, what was that even for? All right, so anyhow. Katie Marie Jones still doing a good job announcing in this environment. I hope it stays that way and she continues to grow. I'm so happy that she just didn't continue to repeat what the previous ring announcer was saying. Or I shouldn't even say saying, doing her act, doing her shtick. Following contest is scheduled for wonderful. That. She got away from it. Good on you. So, this begins. Babyface in the ring. Here comes Miami Sweet Heat with Lana Star. Miami Sweet Heat gave their shades to Strike and Blaze at the start of the match, apparently to be distracted, I guess. Because the babyfaces essentially just took the shades off and kind of looked at him with like, wait, give me these for ew, and just kind of tossed them down. And that opened him up both for clotheslines and a jump start to the match. I don't think the full on play by play needs to be gotten into, but we'll hit some of the high points. Laura takes a dive and hits Lindsay by mistake. That took place. What was she on the outside? Just kind of flew through and nailed her. I wrote down, is "oh my goodness" supposed to be Zayn's catchphrase or something? I mean, he tends to kind of throw that in there a lot. I'd say, is that like his version of "oh my God"? Is or Boomer Sooner or whatever catchphrase that the commentators had started using from the 90s on up? I guess Michael Cole's would be vintage. But is this supposed to be his version of that? Is this his catchphrase? This is the thing that I'm trying to get over or required to do per episode? I mean, he's got to do his own thing. It's not my favorite, but it ain't for me to like. So, whatever works for you, Nigel. Whatever works for you. The match gets the heat on blaze, and it moves fine, but the crowd honestly just seemed to be there. They were watching, but they didn't feel invested. They watching enough to be like, oh, this is nice, and I'm enjoying it, and you know, I can watch the big moves and whatnot, but they didn't quite seem invested in any one person that was in that ring. It just never came off like that to me. I'm sure somebody out there in the world like, no, that crowd was hyped for them. They loved this. Was a fantastic match. It was better than anything on WrestleMania. I'm sure somebody out there will say some nonsense like that. But no, I did not get the impression that this crowd cared, might be a strong way to phrase it, but I didn't get the impression that they were overly concerned with anything that was taking place within the course of this match other than watching the bumps take place and whatever other stunt that they might be able to do. McLean puts Lana Starr on par with Jimmy Hart and Bobby Heenan during the commentary. I like Lana. I do. And I spoke highly of Lana over the previous episodes. But asking, or I shouldn't say asking, making the statement that she's more or less on par with either Jimmy Hart or Bobby Heenan. No. No. I cannot agree with that. I just can't look. And again, I like her, but she hasn't been in that enough for me to just like, oh yeah, she's right up there with him. No, she's not. She's still got some growing to do. She's just better than everybody else that's there. That much I will give her absolute full credit for. And I really do need to ask somebody, it's like, is she doing this on her own, or is she just memorizing verbiage and she's just good at delivering that verbiage? But anyhow, that's neither here nor there. So again, I like her, but she's not there yet. She's got a long way to go to be in that stratosphere, in the rare air of a Bobby Heenan, certainly. The match takes us up to the outside, and here's where it got, I would say, predictable. Somehow or another, we got all four competitors that went onto the floor. The ramp side of the ring. The babyface tried to take a shot at the members of Sweet Heat. They evaded said shot and placed them both in full Nelsons, a submission hold that cannot count because they're on the floor. So now they got these two young ladies, Blaze and Strike, on the floor, full Nelsons. And lo and behold, who comes up from underneath the ring? Two masked women. I bet you'll never guess who these two are. You will never guess who they are. Oh, I'm telling you, this is a surprise. So they come out from underneath the ring while these two are facing obviously towards them for the spot to be accommodated, the two masked wrestlers take out some spray paint and they spray the eyes of Miami Sweet Heat because the team of Blaze and Strike managed to evade the paint and get out of the way. But that also did not stop them from getting thrown into a pole or the outside ring post. And that's how they left them. They simultaneously knock out Blaze and Strike, throwing them into the ring post. They didn't leave these two masked young ladies and walk up the ramp and unmask. Take everything off right then. And I went, well, why bother wearing it at all? If 20 seconds after you did it, you're going to show who you are anyway. I mean, there was really no point in them trying to hide. What are you hiding your identity for? They gave up their identities within seconds. So what was the mask, the bandana, the hoodie, for what? That's when you're trying to commit the issue and you don't want to be seen or you don't want to get caught. Here they did it, and before they left the scene of the crime, took the mask off like, see, it was me. I robbed the bank. So I don't know. Like, what is it that they were looking to do? For what reason were these masks necessary at all? So you see that, and I'm sure they were seeking drama, whoever wrote this, or like, oh, you're going to go to the ramp and you're going to take your mask off, and they're going to be like, oh. Well, that didn't happen. This was underwhelming. And the unmasking unveiled Kara Kai and Sandy Shaw. Surprise! I bet you didn't see that one coming. Who could have ever guessed that? Kai and Shaw unveiled shirts that read best for business. It looked like they just ran down the street to the local shirt maker like, hey, we need something fast. Give me that red shirt and write these letters on there. It's nice that they're a team, but they're a team to little to no reaction in this reveal. And again, the reveal. Why did they bother? Now, I will say this. There is an upside to Kai and Shore getting together. Now, I'm not saying that this angle, the program, or whatever, however we got to this point was good, because it wasn't. I'm still underneath the motivation. Like, what was their motivation for this? I'm still under that question still lingers in me. It hangs over my head. What was their motivation for doing any of this? What drove them to the point that they were willing to wait underneath a wrestling ring for who knows how long with hoodies on in Vegas with spray paint to come out and attack somebody, mid-match once they found their spot to be able to do it. I mean, that first off, and I don't want to say it as a knock to anybody that was there, but the first thing being is that scene came off as highly choreographed and constructed. Nothing about that felt like it was a spontaneous, instantaneous thing. It felt like it was a planned thing, which it was. Almost to the point that you were saying it looked like Miami Sweet was holding them for best for business to get there. Now, I'm not saying that's what took place. But if I told somebody that was just watching it and like if I muted the commentary and then they, missed like they did, they might have thought that, well, yeah, they was all working together and the others who just got out of the way. So I don't know. I had no idea. But the thing that I was getting at with the good that might come of this is that Sandy Shore, specifically Sandy Shore, has needed a refresh or reboot if she's going to remain in that company for a long time. Because the Sandy Shore gimmick was, that thing was DOA from the moment she walked out there. It was a retread of a gimmick that had been out there on WoW and probably its predecessor. So you can say 30 years worth of, gotta have somebody on run around on the beach. In fact, it's almost 30 years because when was Beach Patrol, when they created it was like 2001. So yeah, you almost at 30 years. And it just got recycled into Spring Break 24/7. And where are those two been? So it could work out well for them. It definitely can't hurt Sandy Shore. Kai has had some success, although with different partners. Xena Phoenix, specifically. It's somewhat, it's not amazing, but to see her having gone through this whole fight against the evils of the heels of WoW, and now she's become one of them, is a little interesting. I think it would be good for the both of them to be able to get a different personality and relate, to the audience a little better, or to the viewing audience a little better. But as good as that might be for them individually, again, I will probably put more of the weight on that for Shore rather than Kai. But as good as it might be for them individually, it also seems like they would have a questionable time on the roster just in terms of where they're going to carve their niche. WoW has a significant amount of heels right now. It's kind of like how I felt with the Alliance. So it's not that they didn't have talented people there, but where were they going to go? It was like one faction too many. How were they going to fit within that universe when there was already a Fab Four, when there was already a top tier? And then you added in the Alliance, they didn't have anything to go after. And now you got the Enlightened, which only muddies the water more. And then I look at this and I say, it's pretty much falling into the same category of where are they going to go. I'm sure they'll have their matches. I'm sure they'll find something to do. I'm sure they'll get their moment in the sun and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But where are they going to go as a team? You've already got Miami Sweet Heat. You've already got the Brat Pack. You've already, you've already got Animal Instinct. You've already got Top Tier. You got the new loser squad of, Speed and Vroom. I guess, I guess technically they're not a team. You got the Enlightened that's thrown out there. So you got several different combinations that could be utilized out of that. Where exactly is Best for Business going to slot themselves in order to be effective in this company? Now, again, that's not to say that WoW management might just bump somebody out of the way or somebody might leave or whatever the case may be. So there's always the option that it might take place. But when I'm looking at the roster now, Where? Clearly, they will get some time to go against their new rivals, against Strike and Blaze. That would be the obvious thing. But I'm concerned over that. I am positive that at some point they're going to say the same thing that every heel team wants to say. Well, we're going to be the tag team champions and we're the best in the world and blah, 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 blah. I'm sure that'll come out of their mouth at some point on television. But again, I ask, where are they going to be slotted? And where are the baby faces? Are there any babyface teams that could pop up and do something? I mean, I guess Blaze and Strike are the closest that you got, but who else is there? Is there the Mites? I love the Mighty Mites, but I'm sure that WoW is never going to get them tag team titles. I just closed the door on that. I was like, that's probably never going to happen. Sands and Phoenix, maybe. Diamante and some other part. Where the hell is she? You know, she came out to Vegas and did one of those press things. I ain't seen her on TV yet. Last time I saw her, she had like a 1-minute squash match losing to Scout Parker. And then she just showed back up like, yeah, we're going to be in Vegas. And I never saw her again. Anyhow, that was a little sidetrack. So, yeah, I don't know where they're going to go, how they're going to slot themselves. I'm sure they'll find something. And they're probably somebody's pet project, so they'll win some title. You know, that now that I say that out loud, I was like, you know, if you've got the ear of somebody in the back, you can get you a championship. So that might be, time will tell. But one thing that they are dangerously low on is good baby faces. They got a lot of bodies on that roster, but they ain't got a lot of baby faces. Anyhow, so you got Best for Business. They unveil themselves. They come out from under the ring. They sprayed Miami Sweet Heat accidentally in the face. Whoops. And then they put the baby faces into the ring post, and they go up the ramp and show themselves. Big shock. That match was about 9 minutes long. To very little fanfare and low reaction. Next segment is a recap of Santana Garrett regaining the number one contendership and her interactions with the Enlightened. Nothing about this shows Santana Garrett is strong. It's just, in fact, I mean, it shows her getting beat multiple times. And I wrote down after I was watching, it's like, what about this gives you cause to root for Santana Garrett? She, theoretically, is the top babyface of the company. And I say theoretically. But what am I rooting for when she's almost always getting outwitted, outsmarted, constantly beat? You want your top babyface to be at least somewhat successful. Yeah, she'll win a match here and there, but it's always the matches that don't mean anything. When it comes down to the wire, it's like, whoops, rug gets pulled out from underneath me. Can't do it. So I don't know, man. It's fascinating that she is placed in this position and I guess expected to have people just, come on, Santana. And yeah, you're going to get some fans that's going to root for her regardless of what she does or how ridiculously she's presented. And yes, if you said that audio at the beginning of this show was in relation to her, then ding, 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 you won. Can she not have a storyline that makes her look like a goddamn idiot or makes her look stupid or makes her look like she has no clue about what's going on in the world around her? Can she get one of those? instead of having to do this nonsense. And that's what it is. It is nonsense. Next segment is another Sibley Scoles segment. And she is interviewing Santana Garrett. And she says you have the opportunity to retain the title. Now, it's a small thing, but I was like, no. She has the opportunity to regain the title, not retain it. And she being Garrett, gets into the interview segment. Like, there's still some loopholes in her memory, but she's ready to go. And Scholes is like, it's like nothing happened. I'm like, seriously? That is exactly what I wrote down. Like, seriously. It's like nothing happened. She just stood there and said that she got loopholes in her memory. And then we got that line. I was like, all right, well, that sounds about as much foreshadowing as you can do. She's ready to go. There's no problems here. Don't look at the guy behind the curtain. I don't know. But that felt like a nail in the coffin for me. When I heard that, I was like, oh, boy, we know something is not going to be good here. And it wasn't. As we will find out. The next segment is also the main event of the evening. It leads off into Santana Garrett versus Penelope Pink. Lana Star for the Wild Championship. It should be noted that we get to see an excited crowd shot in one, and then kind of flips to a completely subdued shot in the next. That was, of course, before this really started up. We said Santana Garrett come out. During this intro, they cut to Pink being interviewed by Scoles. Sibley Scoles was earning her money this particular episode. She gives a good interview as normal. I mean, there's everything that you would expect. The graphic for the belt looks great. Again, we cannot knock production value. How that production has been used on occasion, that right there you can get on, but not the value of the production. She gave what I would expect her to give. She's usually pretty good on the microphone. I didn't have any doubts here. Zayn is still selling the Wild Championship as prestigious, as he should. But even though I agree he should be selling it as such, I don't know if he nor David McClain have done enough within their commentary to make me believe that even within their universe that is prestigious. Like there should be some reasoning as to why they are willing to put themselves through whatever it is that they put themselves through to become the Wild Champion. Other than I just want to carry around the belt. And I know that's, probably not a massive thing for everybody, but it does mean something. I cannot tell you that as a kid, I honestly believed Bobby Heenan when he was like, you win the WWF Championship, you'll make more money, you'll be on every newspaper, cover across America, and this, he talked the belt up for multiple people to make it sound like it was the biggest thing. Now, again, did I believe that? No, but some of those things you had to acknowledge. Well, that might be true, because one thing that they had is they had a great press place, so they could have showed up at your local TV stations, but they also would probably show up on something that was nationally broadcast, like the Arsenio Hall show, like Regis and Kathy Lee, or shows of that nature where they would pop in, had a championship, talk whatever it is they're going to talk, promote whatever it is they're going to promote, and then at the same time, it backs up the claims of a Bobby Heenan. Maybe not so much as you're going to be on the cover of every newspaper in America, which wouldn't be relevant now, but still, you get what I'm saying. The idea was that he put the belt over. And not just put the belt over, he put over why? Because you'll make more money. You'll be a star. Once you have that championship, you go down in history as one of the greatest athletes ever to blah, 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 blah. And they've all had, well, most of them, not all, but most of them had some level of definition as to what that championship meant and why it was important. Amongst all the other world's heavyweight championships that have been created and utilized and floating around, they had to find their particular lane. The one that I've always applauded, and I use him as a point of reference, was Mike Tenay when he was talking about the NWA Championship. He did a great job of putting that belt over as this is the most prestigious belt that you can have in this business. And he gave you the why. It's got the longest lineage. It's done such and such. It's been held by blah, blah, this, that, and the other person. It is a true world's championship. It is the only one that can go in multiple promotions and be recognized, and so on and so forth. With WOW, and let me just go and say this is not a knock to WOW. This is my suggestion to WOW. I don't think it's enough to just say it's prestigious, because you've got to convince the people outside of that. The people that's in the WOW bubble don't need convincing. They're already there. The ones that just happen to tune in, well, what makes this belt any different than, say, a TNA Knockouts or an AEW Women's Championship or the WWE or NXT Women's Championship? What makes that belt more important than them? When visually, it would be easier to go the other direction. When they travel with these things, they're defending them all the time. They make more money. Look at this, the largest company in the world. They need something to carve out the niche for why the WOW championships matter. And I'm not even saying that they don't. They just need to have a reason for the viewing public. At least they should. And there's points where things are done and said within a while that I'm like, the only people that would ever have any sort of relationship to this is somebody that's just a WOW fan. And I mean like a deep WOW fan. There's not enough people in that lineage just to go off of, well, we've had set stars with it like Terry Gold and the Beast, which is what they used when they talked about the belts. I was like, I can truly say that those ladies are probably very nice ladies. I mean, unless they would shatter the image of that, but I would believe that both of those women are very nice women. But they didn't stay in the wrestling business long enough for their names to carry that kind of weight. When you talked about the NWA championship and they're like, well, it's got the names of Luthez and Gene Kaninsky and Nature Boy Buddy Rogers and Dusty Rhodes and Ric Flair, Harley Race, and, the whole 9 yards. Well, those are box office attractions. There was no denying what their status was. And you can go through individually, and I'm not going to do it now, but you can go through individually by how big they were, what they meant to whatever promotion they were at, or what they meant to the money that was being created or generated just by their presence. And by proxy of that, being the champion just made them that much more, or at least their credibility sometimes made the championship mean more. WoW needs that moment, and WoW needs those people. Everybody right now are trying to build it. It's not an already built thing. But anyhow, what was that? Oh yeah, I said the graphic of the belt looks great, and him selling as prestigious. Katie Marie does the second match introductions of the episode. Thumbs up. And then they cut away because they have to get ready for a commercial break. Come back and they advertise next week. Next episode, the 10-woman elimination tag match. This is advertising Tormenta, Lil J Boogie, Gabriella Cruz, and the Mighty Mites versus the entirety of the Alliance. I don't remember if I gave my opinions about this particular match. I thought it would probably be good. But at some point within the course of this match, I fully expect, and my reasoning behind this is that WoW has not had a match to exceed, let's say 16 minutes. I'm talking about bell to bell. Now they've had a segment that exceeded that, but I don't think they've had a match that's exceeded that. And I'm talking about across 20 years. They have not had a match that has exceeded, by and large, let's just say 15 minutes. And if you're going into it with the knowledge of that, there's no way that this thing can stretch out. So what I expect it to do is that there, at some point in the match, is going to be marathon pinfalls. Just boom, 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 boom. You know. Now, to be fair, they did not create the marathon pinfall system, but that's what I expect them to do. Just because this is a 10-woman elimination match on television on a WoW program. And there's no way that they're going to get this thing anything beyond 15 minutes. No way. So we go to the next segment, which brings us back into the match. First thing we get is Dave McClain talking up how Gabriella Cruz came close to winning the championship. I was like, all right. He's doing a recap of what took place the week. I mean, not the week, but the championship match prior. Nothing wrong with that. He also goes back to saying that Garrett wants to do this for her father. Now, I started going off the rails here. I was like, okay, didn't we already establish that Garrett was doing it for herself now? What the fuck is going on here? They just had a full sit-down interview with her a couple of weeks ago where she explained that. She sat there on camera and told everybody, I'm not, I'm sure my father will understand, I'm not doing it for my father anymore. I have to do this for me. She turned the narrative, and it still floated right back towards her father. Because the commentators apparently insist on it. Which means that this angle is already inconsistent. Why? So, yeah. Let me just get past the idea that Dave McClain at some point in time, within whatever match happens to be, is going to say or do something that is completely contradictory to things that have been shown or said before. I've just got to go and accept that now. I know I brought it up before. And it might be minor to other people, but it happens a lot. I would say at least once per episode, you're going to get him to say or do something that's going to be completely contradictory to something else. As if he didn't have a clue who this person was or why they were there, or didn't pay attention to the show or what was going on around him. I can't remember the episode that it took place in, but it was one of those where Nigel said something and the goddamn 10 seconds later, Dave McClain turned to Nigel repeating the same thing that he just said. Yeah. All right. That's enough of that. I just had to get that out of my system. So, yeah, I mean, look, it starts off with a nice big fight feel. You have to give them that. I don't know if Pink and Garrett are my favorite opponents for one another. The match was fine, but I think I've seen both of them have better matches with other opposition. Like, I actually enjoyed the Pink Cruz match more so than I enjoyed this. And it may have everything to do with how it was finished up. That's very possible. But I also think that, they worked well enough with each other. Even in the Pink and Holly Swag match, both of those young ladies worked very hard. And looked like they were perfectly willing to brutalize each other when the time was right in order to get the match over. But this is not an indictment of them working together. I'm just saying that I thought that personally, that I thought both Santana Garrett and Penelope Pink have had chemistry that was better with other opposition. Even though I would say I preferred Pink with Cruz, I think one of her better opponents had been Ozzy. As far as Garrett goes, I mean, it's kind of hard to say because almost like she had a good match with Sanchez, but it's not like she's got a bunch of them. And every match that I have pop into my mind that she's in, almost all of them in it in some kind of screwball finish. So, except for the once or twice where she gets the win just because. So anyhow, we get the match, and this goes to the point where I was talking about their history doesn't really help the title. I know he has to do it, but it doesn't really help anything. Zayn started naming off Penelope Pink, The Beast, and Terry Gold, and I wrote, unfortunately, not strong names in the title lineage. The strongest name that they have there is not somebody that they're going to bring up. That's going to be Tessa Blanchard. She's the strongest name that they have attached to that belt. But they're probably never going to bring that up. And to be fair, nor should they. That's, it didn't work out well for them before, but I'll also say that was Wild's dumbass fault for doubling down on her. Making T-shirts and whatnot, nuclear heat. So they knew what they were getting. It just didn't work out for them, and they had to roll with the punches. Zayn is definitely slipping back into the overuse of David during the match. He ain't nearly as bad as what he was, but it is starting. So it is coming back around. It is coming back around. McLean, he's not as bad, but he does toss in, hey, Nigel. He's got to do that every once in a while. It can get a little testy. Hopefully it won't grow outside of look. I can understand that he's got to use the name here and there. I get it. But it doesn't have to be on the average of like every other minute or so. That's where it gets rough. When it's all the time. Where you finish a sentence, you got to start it off with his name and David, and David, and David, David. So please, so don't slip back into doing this bullshit. And I say that as, somebody that's supporting you, but don't, please do not slip back into that. Much like the first match, the crowd seemed interested, but not invested. I've used the whole Batman stunt show versus the movie thing, and I think while on a couple of occasions falls into the Batman stunt show category. In that a stunt show could be very entertaining. And they have characters that you recognize and know and love, and they'll even have a pretty loose plot to tie the stunts together. But the plot is almost secondary to the stunts. They just needed it there to give you some sort of semblance of a full-on story as to why this person's doing whatever it is that they're doing. Be that the Indiana Jones stunt show, the Batman stunt show, and anything in between. And you can enjoy those. You can enjoy watching the guy jump on the rope and leap through fire and dive into the high pool, the pool off the high platform, and et cetera, et cetera. You can enjoy all of that stuff. Odds are that you probably will not turn around and remember a great deal of whatever plot they may have had. Odds are you weren't invested enough in that thing to memorize, hey, when he did this such and such, I can remember when they was talking about this, that, and the other thing, whatever plot lines might have been woven into that. Probably don't remember those. But you go to a Batman movie, that's a different issue because it's built on the idea that you have to watch it. It's built on the idea that you got to follow the storyline, and the storyline should be good. It's built on character development and a strong arc to get you emotionally invested. So by the time we get to whatever it is that they're trying to get to, the payoff works. You sat there, you watch this person get away with who knows what and for how long, and then you get to the movie and he's finally countered by the Cape Crusader or whatever, you mean? And you pop because he got the revenge or saved the day or whatever it happens to be. That's why I say there's the difference there. I think they were interested. I think they enjoyed it. I just don't think they were invested in it because I don't know what plot lines they were following, what program or angle or what have you. I don't know what they got out of this. And I know that's not necessarily comfortable for the women. I'm sure that there was a contingent that were happy to be there because it's a different setting and it's getting a star treatment. You're under the lights. It looks big and, it is very much in kind of superstar mode. I'm sure all of that was fantastic. But, again, it's a lot of people that's watching who probably vaguely know who some of the people are, which is, again, unfortunate, but you have it. So these two work fine with each other. It's an enjoyable match. I think you could be perfectly okay with it up until like the last minute. Once you get to that point, then, you continue at your own risk. So we'll get to the end portions of this. And keep in mind that the championship is on the line in this particular thing. And we start doing the acts of stupidity that would lead you into why is this taking place and why they had this young lady doing these things. So we get Santana Garrett. We'll pick it up where she has Penelope Pink and, well, Austin Aries thought it was the last chancery with him. So we'll stick with that. She has in the last chancery, and I thought Penelope Pink did a genius. It's simple but genius. It's a Jesse Ventura thing. Thumb in the eye or break any hole. I remember him saying that. It was like, yeah, I was like, you know how I got out of that? I'd have thumb him in the eye. That'll break any hole. And that's what Penelope Pink did here. She's caught in the last chancery, but she's got 2 free arms. She's not held up or anything like that. And so what she does is, in plain view of the referee, like the ref's looking right at her. In plain view of the referee, she just reaches back there and ricks Santana Garrett's eyes. And I don't even know if the ref did or said a thing following that. He just like, yeah, okay, you okay? And just moved on. No warning. No, hey, you can't do that. Oh, that's illegal. Just kind of happened and moved on. And look, I agree with the escape, but the referee should have said something. He should have reprimanded her or something like that, even if he wasn't going to flat out disqualify her. So they get up and the action continues. Santana Garrett gets to start doing the Santana Garrett stuff, right? So she whips Penelope Pink to one side of the ring into a corner. She hits the old cartwheel out of the opposite end, lands on Pink, assumably hitting her with an elbow, and then she hits her with a series of elbows or back elbows while she's leaning on top of her. Pink staggers out of the corner, and then bam, a super kick that lays Penelope Pink out. And you would think, with the importance of the championship, that Santana Garrett would have just turned around and laid on top of her and pinned her. This is where I started having a problem because for whatever reasons, whenever she's in a title match, that super kick all of a sudden isn't enough. I don't know why. Like, it worked fine when it's non-title matches, when she had to beat Sanchez or some other people that's on the roster. But when it counts, she has to go for that handstand standing moonsault deal because that's an easier move to fuck up. I don't get it. I don't. I mean, just in the kayfabe universe, I don't get it. Super kick, no effort. It's just like Kalaki. Snapmare driver, no effort. Time for me to go surfing, baby. And here is just, you do this, and I'm going to give enough time for this next thing to happen, which is basically what it was. I did get past the rise and shine part. I forgot to mention that, but I had it in my notes, so I'll just say it. She did hit the rise and shine at some point earlier in the match, but I do feel like it's coming to diminishing returns because it happens every match. I think it would have been a bigger thing if it happened during big matches, but again, what's a big match in a while? She probably has no idea when is a good time to break this out. If it was a pay-per-view, it's like, okay, now it's time for that. But it happens almost every time she's on TV. So it's moving to diminishing returns. Anyway, back to where we were. The Enlightened. They start walking down the ramp. Of course, just as Santana Garrett was, alleged to be getting ready to win. Now, keep in mind, and this is where I start thinking that this is some nonsense and utterly just ridiculous. So, I'm getting myself together here so I can see this ridiculousness. So the Enlightened come out to ringside. We all know that David McClain could have got up, stopped them, asked for security, kicked them out, banned them, something. Could have did any one of those things. Didn't happen. Did not happen. This is also following the idea that the Enlightened aren't quite as invulnerable as they were presented. I mean, let us not forget we had the whole what was her name? That Destiny Diesel. That whole deal. When she came out to save her friend, she came out to take care of good old Kalaki Island girl. And in the course of that, ran the entirety of the Enlightened off. This is what I was talking about in that episode. I was like, okay, we've established that the Enlightened will run if they have, motivation to do so. You get a chair or whatever the case may be, and you can run them off. I'm already looking at them as like, okay, now what is keeping them in some sort of mode of intimidation beyond the fact that they got numbers? And why are they allowed to do this? The owner is sitting right there at ringside. He's sitting in the commentating booth, and we've already seen that he is capable of doing these things. And I would say that the audience there, for the brief amount of exposure that they have had, seeing that he's capable of doing these things, I asked myself, I could have swore during this last match that the crowd started chanting, "Kick them out." That was on the previous episode. That was an episode before this, the Revenge of the Tier, when Kalaki did have to get saved by Destiny Diesel. And I went back. I was like, yeah, that's unless I'm mishearing it, some of those fans started with "kick me out." Kick them out. Kick them out. Kick them out. They've seen it happen. And there's no reason for them not to be able to do it again. So this is all the stuff that I talked about. You eventually you're going to educate your audience that you can do these things. So why aren't you? It's the inherent problem of him being there. But since he doesn't want to give that position up, you're going to get that. Now, it's not going to happen immediately because WoW is not playing in a large enough area towards enough wrestling fans that would happen. But if it keeps going and if it's on a larger platform at any given time, it will occur. Mark my words. It will occur if it's there long enough. Some of those fans will start to get the idea. Why the fuck is he doing anything about this? And then it just, why am I going to invest my time into it? Because it's clearly just all BS. My job is just to watch this show and not care who does what. You can't invest in that because there's inconsistency in the rules. So you got the Enlightened, the entire group, who's allowed to come out at ringside and take one side apiece. Classmaster, Mirage, Nova Sky, Pandemonium, and Smart. They all walk out slowly, surround the ring as this match is going on. Now, Lana Starr, to her credit, kind of her body language showed her as one to back up and kind of keep some distance from them. But now we've got Garrett, who has Pink down, and she's getting ready to go for her handstand deal and go for the pin. She takes a run and runs back, and then she catches the eye of Samantha Smart, and then she just stops in her tracks and looks at her. And what are you doing? And what? She didn't say anything. She just kind of staring around at her. This is when Penelope Pink takes advantage of the situation, clips her in the knee, hits her with Pretty in Pink, 1, 2, 3, and she wins. The one thing that I did like is that at no point did I get the impression that Penelope Pink was afraid of anybody in there. Nor should she be. She's the champion. And again, they've already shown themselves to be cowards when it comes down to it. She looked like she might have been partially annoyed by them, but not afraid or concerned. Which again, it kind of gives this, how am I supposed to be feeling about it? Because the commentators try to pass them off as, oh, this is creepy. They try to give them that. But then at the same time, you have some people that have no fear of them at all. Now, Pink should be the overall exception there. I don't mind that Destiny Diesel wasn't afraid of them, but I thought it was a little bit too early for that because it's Santana Garrett's angle. Now we've just roped in some other people before she's done a thing with anybody. Not just roped in some other people who have actually, before our main lead in this story, shown what their weakness happens to be. Get a weapon. They'll go. So they all stand around. They looked at Santana Garrett after she took the loss. And she looked at them. And they looked at her. And she looked at them. And then they walked away. That was about it. And it's like, oh, I don't understand what's going on here. I was like, okay, well, whatever. This entire angle is shit. I'm just go ahead and say that now. This entire angle with the enlightened Santana Garrett is shit. Because what's it going to come down to? The book was magic? Or is it going to be that they gave her a drug-induced hypnosis? Because you got to feel like it's heading towards something absurd like that. And then they just walked on out. Untouched, unmolested, not bothered, nothing. Just this group that kidnapped her just walked on out of there without any problems. She didn't even yell at them. I mean, I see some people that did some stuff like that to me. I might go out and pick up the nearest thing that I have just to make sure that I'm okay. She just kind of stood around like, I don't understand what's happening. And again, I'm like, how do you get behind a top baby face when they're almost always outsmarted, outwitted, outmaneuvered, beaten, shown to be, less than stellar in terms of taking care of herself, and doesn't have anybody that will be willing to watch her back, apparently. Rewind to the previous episode. They came out there, they go out to Kalaki, put out a stretcher. 30 seconds later or less, Diesel's running down the ringside to save her. I have asked, and I've asked, and I've asked, where is this woman's friends? And I get it. Look, if they had done the angle, even if they had her friends come out there, they would have had to have lost, but at least the effort would have been there. At least you would have seen they tried to save Santana Garrett from this horrible fate, but they just couldn't get past the Enlightened, which would have done great for the Enlightened. It would have made them look bigger and stronger. It would have made Santana Garrett look like she had somebody at least trying, and you would have gotten to the same place. Here is just, she's all alone. Nobody's bothering. I'm sure somebody will eventually, but by that time it's too late. This match, it was okay until we got to this. Because this Enlightened angle is just nonsense. It is utter nonsense. And how anybody's expecting that to be the thing that, maybe they're not expecting to turn the favors of WoW towards being this, massive group. People are going to go around, the Enlightened, we're going to buy some Enlightened merchandise. I don't think that's going to happen, but still, that where is this supposed to go? What are they doing with this? Why are they having this? Because I can only see that it might just be something supernatural, or if not that, it's going to be the kidnapping and what they're pumping it full of mind-numbing drugs or something along those lines. I wish that this had been done entirely differently, and matter of fact, I wish it hadn't been done. But if they were going to do it, this should have been done a different way. I mean, they couldn't even go past 2 weeks or 2 months. Was it 2 months? 2 months. Without having anything like that. 2 months, and they couldn't stay strong. Destiny Diesel already showed them up. So, I don't know. And there we have it. That was the show. And what did you think about said show? Was it good for you? Because I know that anytime I say this about WoW, there's always, that core group of WoW people that's like, man, this show was fantastic. I've never seen anything like this. It was fire. It was better than WrestleMania. Or, you always get that contingent. Which, by the way, I guess it should be noted, was this taking place across WrestleMania weekend? Was it that? No. I'm off. But they had, I do have to point out that they have had some massive competition on the weekends as of late. From NASCAR to UFC, the Final Four they had, not the Final Four, but just all the March Madness they had to deal with last month. I mean, I can't imagine that the ratings for WoW could be great right now. And I'm not even saying that that's to any fault of their own. They just had so much stuff. And in some of these stations, they're considered such an expendable asset. Now, you might not even be able to watch the entire thing. I know in Detroit, they clipped half of that show off because they had to make room for their moneymakers. They had to make room for the live car racing that was going on. So for WKBD in Detroit, that's what they got. WoW got pushed back a couple hours, and even when it got pushed back, got rid of segment 1, 2, 3, and 4. I think it entered into it midway with 4, so they didn't even get all the entire show. And they're not the only ones, but that's the one that I know of. And there we go. A 2-match episode, which featured a lot of the Fab Four, but they're also in an interesting position as I'm looking at WoW lately. Like, they're the champions of this company. But there's nothing really significant that they're doing at the moment. I mean, they're there, and they're having defenses. Certainly can't take that away from either Miami Sweet Heat or Penelope Pink. But there's no personal issue between them and anybody, in any given person. Like, Penelope Pink right now has no challenger waiting on the horizon. That's, I can't wait till we get to this point. She just doesn't have that. No one is walking up the ranks to try to get to this, which again, to me, addresses a very real lack of baby faces there. Miami Sweet Heat, they are involved in a storyline, but they're on the outskirts of that storyline. Miami Sweet Heat are almost a non-factor to it. Like, they needed to be there to give some sort of catalyst as to why, theoretically, this babyface team was going to split or, have problems or whatnot. And they just happened to be the champions, and they were going to use the championship belts as the beginning domino as to why they're here, why they got to this point, why they're at odds. But beyond that is there's really no reason for them to be there. I mean, you could almost slot in anybody else if you were able to give a good beginning reason for Kai not to be there and Strike to have to take a match by herself. I mean, because that's all it would have took. It didn't need to be the championships. So Miami Sweet Heat, even though it helps the story, I wouldn't say that it's detrimental to it because the story is between Strike and Blaze and Shore and Kai. Miami Sweet Heat just happened to be, on the outskirt perimeter of that. Penelope Pink just happens to be the champion, and she too is just on the outskirts of whatever happened to come on. Like this whole Santana Garrett thing, it was a lot less to do with Penelope Pink, so much as this is a means to get the next chapter of the Enlightened across. And even though I don't like the story, I'm not saying that they shouldn't use it to push Garrett forward. I'm just still thinking, Pink, Miami Sweet Heat aren't really doing anything right now. They're there, but they aren't really doing anything. And maybe that's fair. Maybe in the grand scheme of it, that's fair because they've had a lot of airtime. They've had a lot of storyline for good and bad. So maybe it's just their time to give it back. Like I said, I'm not mad at any of this. I'm not saying that it's a problem. It's just kind of strange to me considering their positions. I would have imagined or expected that the champions, whomever that they are, would have some slew of champions, if nothing else, if they didn't have a single other thing that they were doing. If they had no personal issue, if they had no program that they were involved in, if they didn't have a thing going on, the championships theoretically should provide them an inherent story. But that hasn't happened. So there we have it, folks. That was the review of WOW's, as of me talking about it, latest episode. But what is the next episode of WOW? What will they have coming up? And we talked about what they got because we read the little segment that they had in the show where they advertised a 10-woman elimination. I know some people are going to call it a Survivor Series match, but no, let's listen. I know I give WOW a hard enough time, but let's give them this much: it's not a Survivor Series match. Survivor Series is what the WWE branded the elimination match as. They didn't invent the elimination match; they just put a brand name behind it. So that is the match that I guess that I'm looking forward to. But what is it that they have said? Let's see what they have written for us this week as it relates to the next episode. So, and of course, and as always, it's very likely that you've seen that already. But for the benefit of me, we're going to take a read through this. And that episode is going to be episode 428, season 4, episode 28. The title is going to be Bullies and Bullied. That's an interesting title. And it reads as follows. Las Vegas is still stunned with disbelief from last week's shocking events where neither championship match ended the way anyone expected. Meanwhile, the IQ superior Samantha Smart hasn't given up on her mission to enlighten Kalaki the Island Girl, sending Dr. Pandemonium and Miranda the Mindful into a tag battle against Destiny Diesel and Kalaki the Island Girl. Will the unfinished business from their last encounter be settled? And in a highly anticipated 10-way elimination main event. 10-way. Yeah, okay. Sorry. that just seemed worded wrong. But anyway, we'll continue. In a highly anticipated 10-way elimination match, Tormenta, Gabriella Cruz, Lil J Boogie, Sugar and Spice finally get their shot at revenge against a group that's targeted each of them. The Alliance, Ariana Gambino, Reina Del Rey, Sylvia Sanchez, BK Rhythm, and Gigi Gianni. Only one side leaves vindicated, the bullies or the bullied. Huh. All right. So let me start with this just to say, did I miss the episodes where the Alliance was bullying them? I don't remember those at all. Did the Alliance bully Gabriella Cruz somehow, or Little J Boogie, or the Mites, or Tormenta? When did this bullying take place? What revenge is this team trying to get? They barely have any reaction with them. The only reason they're in this match is because Dave McClain got on the microphone and called for help. We need help out here. We need the referees. Someone can help us. They didn't have a thing to do with this. They were called into action by their boss. So I don't know if this is a case of, should I be going along with that, this revenge? I mean, revenge for what? These are those little things that are like, man, sometimes WoW makes this very difficult for me. Because they just say stuff. And then you're just supposed to accept it. And the problem is that most of their fans will just go ahead and accept it. And if you're in WoW's management, you have no reason to believe anything different than, it being perfectly fine. Because there you go. We have our fans and they like this stuff, so just keep doing it. We don't have to change a thing. But I'm looking at this. I'm looking at the title, and I didn't understand it when I read it. But I was like, okay, I guess they have some plan behind it. But the bullies versus the bullied. When did the Alliance bully any of them? And I'm not even taking up for the heels, but when did they bully any of them? And then, to a lesser degree of importance, is the tag match with Kalaki, the Island Girl, and Destiny Diesel against Pandemonium and Miranda. So the Enlightened have already started breaking off into doing these things. So we're going to see how that turns out. And whether or not it'll, I guess be decent, or whether the Enlightened will get even with Destiny Diesel for running them off, or get even with her for coming out with a trash can. But this makes it sound like, and I don't know if it's acknowledged on TV or not, but this notice makes it sound like Samantha Smart now has an issue with Kalaki. Well, why would she have an issue with Kalaki? A lot of the stuff that I see on WoW's television is just sheer unmotivated, story. It's just stories that take place without any rhyme or reason. They just are. The Enlightened just happened. Now, I'm sure, I'm not going to say I'm sure. I know because I watched it. She said, and I'm going to paraphrase, she essentially did all that because Santana Garrett beat her up so bad. But then you don't see that, so for what reason do I believe it? Can't wait to see this one. Anyhow, that's it. That is the show. We have covered quite a bit of stuff. And it just does not seem like it's going to get any better. It may only get worse. So there you have it. I am in this thing for the long haul, which means I got another week and another show. I think most of the things that were in the room as far as programming is concerned that would have intervened with seeing WoW in a timely fashion have begun to die off. So that's great, at least for me. I can actually catch this at a reasonable point in time and get it over with. So, you know, I will walk into the job and see if this thing is going to move a little smoother now that we've gotten out of the big rush of March. For those of you that are listening to this podcast, you can always check it out on greater podcast platforms everywhere if you just like the audio version. I do put the link in the YouTube version as well, by the way. But if you're not going to do it there and you're going to jump on YouTube and check it out, well, you know, you're going to just look for Women's Pro Wrestling Network. That should pop on up. Same thing with the audio version of the podcast. Those things you should better find relatively easy. And you can do the YouTube things. You can do the like, share, and subscribe. You can rate for the audio versions of the podcast that's out there. Yes, that can happen, and it does help. And, of course, if you don't know where else to go to find these things, I can't imagine why you wouldn't. But in the event that you do, go to WPNWrestling.com, WPNWrestling.com for all the links and connections. It is the centerpiece, focal point, nexus, all the WPN stuff. With a video player that's running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, with videos dating back to 2013 with a bunch of faces that you know and some that you don't, that have been spread out across multiple wrestling promotions at this point. Some of them didn't, but a lot of them did. Kara Hogan, Aja Pereira, Priscilla Kelly. I know I'm dropping. I know the Wode's been on Shimmer and Shine. Well, I shouldn't say Shimmer. Shine. They should actually set up AEW TV. There's a bunch of them that I'm going to overlook now because, you know, the pressure of trying to think of them off the top of my head. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of names that's floating around there, and you can see them in those early years. Every year that goes by, those videos become more valuable because we got the rookie collection. That's right. And they're going to keep going, and these videos will keep rolling. And that being said, thank you for your time. Thank you for your ears. And if you got any questions or comments, feel free to leave those comment section below, or you can reach out to me directly. Either way works. And on that note, this is Mr. Green saying that this is Mr. Green saying so long, and we'll see you on the next go round. Take care, everybody.
Thank you for listening to the WPN's Rights and Wrongs of Pro Wrestling. If you have questions or comments, please contact us via our Facebook or our YouTube channel at the Women's Pro Wrestling Network. If you're new to the WPN, feel free to subscribe to our channel and like our page. We appreciate your support. Thank you again for listening.